Dragon's Dogma has all the best qualities of a so bad it's good game, without all those things that make a bad game difficult to play. Now that might sound a little bit weird, but hear me out. Dragon's Dogma is straight up fun. It's silly, and it's a game you should play. Silly, I mean things just happen. Take for example, this touching moment at the end of the game, where I was supposed to have a special moment with my lover. I had a lover? Well, apparently it's possible to miss that questline. No problem though, Dragon's Dogma just assigned me a lover to shag. Only, it was the king's advisor. Another example? Well, look at this Cyclops who decided he just had enough of life, giving me a juicy amount of experience for just witnessing the act. This game is weird. It's broken in ways that rarely affect your fun playing it. NPCs wander off into the wilderness to die, monsters behave erratically, dialogue's often nonsensical, but it's hilarious and I loved every second of it. There is a nonsense story here about saving the world, I guess. To cut a weird long story short, a dragon steals your heart and says, "Come kill me." You ally yourself with the king of a small kingdom and quest out into the world, with help from some strange empty vessels called pawns. That's honestly all you really need to know. Really, the story is just a vessel for exploration, and that's about it. I mentioned the game breaks. I don't mean it glitches, I mean, look, it's just different.
I'm in danger!
When the game breaks, it creates memorable and strange moments and rarely, if ever, impedes your progress. With so many AAA games being released lately, Dragon's Dogma actually reminded me how much fun a game is that isn't perfect. Whereas I often feel like a more polished game might railroad that personal gameplay style, Dragon's Dogma is the complete antithesis to this. It presents you with a big, dirty, open playground and tells you to go wild. Where other games may want to give you the feeling of being wholly within another world, Dragon's Dogma gives you a video game as a toy to just play with. The lack of safety rails here only furthers the player's possibilities for fun. I had so much fun doing weird video gamey things that almost any other game would stop me from doing. Fighting monsters way over my level because I found a way to get them stuck on environmental geometry, grappling my allies out of mid-air as I jumped off a cliff, finishing quests before key triggers, completely changing the route I took throughout the story. I feel like any other game would have measures to stop the player from fooling around like this, but Dragon's Dogma just embraces the fact that it's a weird ass video game and lets you do, well, stuff. Speaking of doing stuff, I should probably mention how Dragon's Dogma is played. At its core, it's a semi-open world action RPG. It's truly a mix of things, and it wears its influences on its sleeves. It has large monsters and the ability to climb them from something like, say, Monster Hunter or Shadow of the Colossus. It has the heavy commitment to your actions from games like Dark Souls. And finishing it off, it has a sprinkle of Devil May Cry, which isn't surprising given the director of the game, Hideaki Itsuno, did indeed work on Devil May Cry and various other Capcom fighting games. Combined, it creates a combat system similar to, yet unlike other games within the genre. One moment you might be slashing down swarms of goblins, and the next you might be climbing up on a Hydra to hack off one of its many heads. Melee combat not your cup of tea? Well, let's just say the sorcerer has some of the most incredible spells I've seen in a video game ever. Here's a montage. So, it's a class-based action RPG, and what good would that be without interesting classes and ways to grow them? Dragon's Dogma lets you freely choose between classes as you play, with very little restrictions. Interestingly, stat growth and abilities persist between these changes. So for example, leveling a sorcerer will grant you extra points in magic attack, which will help a lot if you want to transition into magic archer, the coolest class. Rangers might have incredible stamina, which can be used for grappling with monsters, among other things. So maybe you want to play a fearsome warrior that fells foes with one mighty swing, but maybe you want to stalk their prey during the night. Sure, just load up on some passive assassin abilities, easy. It's all very flexible and very interesting. It's just a shame the game never quite explains how the stat growth works, requiring you to familiarise yourself with the fantastic Dragon's Dogma wiki if you want to min and max, which I should stress is in no way necessary to enjoy the game, but it's worth pointing out if you do like that sort of thing. There's an interesting pawn system to tinker with too. You have the freedom to create an NPC familiar to join you throughout the game. Here's mine. He's a warrior named Liver Donut. When you're offline, these pawns can be recruited by other players to help during their own quests. Pawns might find items or gain knowledge while out and about. More than a few times, my pawns had already learned how to complete a quest and would help guide me to the next objective. It's incredibly fun seeing the creations of other players and lends the game a nice communal feeling. Ultimately, these party members, well, they're not the most useful bunch, and they can get on your nerves a little bit, but it's a fun system to poke around with. I like it. As you've probably noticed, it's an older looking game. Being a port of the Xbox 360 title, I think it looks quite nice on PC. It's got a pleasant draw distance and clean, yet clear graphics. It runs smoothly and it does its job. What I find interesting about the presentation is how ordinary the setting is. And look, stay with me here. It makes Dragon's Dogma even more strange. You have this fairly grounded medieval setting with pretty generic Dungeons and Dragons style monsters, which makes it all the more hilarious when things just happen. And can I just say here, I think it's fascinating to see a Japanese game attempt a Western style. Playing Dragon's Dogma, you get the sense that things are just slightly off. And I'm sure that comes from the developers mimicking the style they're not quite experienced with. It's just interesting, and further contributes to that underlying surreal feeling that the game has. I do want to mention two minor grievances I have, and really these are pretty small. For one, the soundtrack's fantastic. It has this pounding orchestral score during the battles and somber themes when exploring or in the few scripted scenes. After far too many hours of playing though, I noticed that there was some absolutely face-melting guitar licks thrown into the battle theme, but you can barely hear them over all the action in the fights. As a self-confessed metalhead, I would have loved to be able to hear these front and center while I was busting goblins' heads and melting dragons. But even after turning down all other effects, it remained at most quiet background sounds among all of the orchestra. It's a shame. Perhaps more importantly, there's a huge lack of quick travel points. I believe the PC release of Dragon's Dogma replaced the finite travel items with one that allows infinite use, but for the most part you'll have 3 or so quick travel points, with further sites requiring a special item to be placed on the ground. In my adventures I only found one of these, which I had to move around as I delved deeper and deeper into the game world. I never quite knew where to leave it, or if I was missing some obvious place to find more. I really do love a game that reinforces its size, making you travel between points to experience interesting encounters or find new emergent gameplay opportunities. But look, I leveled a sorcerer for the most part, and I don't think those book dweebs are known for their athletic ability. Can you imagine running back and forth all over the map with a stamina meter that drains in 3 seconds? It was a bit much. A few more checkpoints would have been nice, and that's all I'm saying. But overall, guys, I just really love this game and I needed to talk about it. I'm a chronic non-game finisher, yet even after being glued to my seat until the credits, I still wanted to play more. I wanted to explore the different classes and what I could do with them. I want to find new combinations of stats and abilities to tackle the post-game, and I just want to fight these fun battles with this incredibly solid combat system. Dragon's Dogma is different, and it's weird. It's a surreal open game that's greater than the sum of its parts, with genuinely cool classes, interesting combat, and the freedom to just enjoy the whole gaminess of it all. I couldn't recommend it more. You really, really should play Dragon's Dogma.